Hello and welcome to a quick news roundup from us here at the Bike Show. First, let me mention the Suzuka 8 Hours race that has been and gone a couple of weekends ago now. It forms part of the World Endurance Championship, but it also stands apart as being an important event in its own right. The Japanese manufacturers place a huge amount of importance on the race, and as such it gets bigger crowds than either MotoGP or World Superbikes when they visit Japan. The biggest ever crowd was about 160,000, I think it was, in 1990, although getting over 100,000 was always a pretty regular occurrence. But I think 70, 80,000 around there is more likely these days. Still, it's a big number. As it is an endurance race, teams are usually made up of 3 riders, and in order to make sure that some of the best riders in the world can turn up for their respective factories and to maintain the significance of the event, the organisers usually attempt to make sure that race weekends don't clash with MotoGP or World Superbikes. Just about all the best racers on the planet have competed at one time or another, though this year it clashed with MotoGP's British round, so no big MotoGP names were present. However, some of the top names from the World Superbike Championship made the trek to Japan, including Johnny Rea, who lined up as defending 8 Hours champion for Kawasaki. His World Superbike teammate Alex Lowes joined him, with the final place being taken by another Brit in the shape of Leon Haslam. A top team, but it wouldn't be enough for Kawasaki to fend off the younger, fresher, less experienced outfit from Honda comprising Nagashima, Takahashi and World Superbike Honda rider Iker Lecuona. You can read details of the race elsewhere on the internet, but if you want to see some of the action, then I recommend you go to the FIM EWC YouTube channel, which does a great job of covering the series. It's on there that I caught wind of the race being the last time that a certain Nobuatsu Aoki would take to the track competitively. You try saying his first name in a rush. Do you remember him? He's well known if you're into your MotoGP racing. He raced for many years, mainly on Hondas. Mainly on Hondas in the beginning. He started in Grand Prix in 1990, and although he won only the one MotoGP on a 250 in 1993 in Malaysia on an Irv Kanemoto tune bike, he had an impact that was far beyond that. His best season was in the 500 class, and in 1997 he finished the year in 3rd overall in the championship, behind Mick Doohan and another Japanese rider, Tadayuki Okada. His last full season was for the Proton KR team in 2004, but for 3 years after that he made a single guest testing appearance on a Suzuki. Well respected, well loved even within the paddock and back home in Japan especially. He's the oldest of 3 brothers, all of whom have featured in the Grand Prix Championship. Staying with the Suzuka theme for the moment, there was an interesting period during the pre-race. Well, it was like a parade of sorts, and Kawasaki were there showing off, albeit very briefly, 2 new models or concepts. Actually, they look like production-ready bikes, so let's be confident and say they're actual models. One is electric, and it appears the other is a hybrid bike. What is particularly interesting is the hybrid bike that features a traditional internal combustion engine and a small electric motor, and the battery to go with it, obviously. Nobody else seems to be pursuing this avenue particularly. Everyone currently going down the electric-only route. I think it makes perfect sense, though, at least in the near to medium term. Many Western cities are already clamping down on the ability of fossil fuel transport being able to access their congested central areas. Yes, an electric bike works perfectly here, but obviously suffers in terms of range if your commute, say, strays too far out of the city centre. Having a small electric motor to deal with the restricted inner city area, and then a more powerful, longer range gas guzzler for the rest of your journey makes perfect sense to me. Until electric only options have improved quite significantly and have fallen in price also quite significantly, this hybrid approach from Kawasaki could well be the answer. Having said that, I did just see something about a little disagreement brewing in MotoGP that gave me another point of view on the matter. Gigi Dall'Igna of Ducati, he's the guy largely responsible for getting their MotoGP bike into such a competitive weapon over the past couple of seasons. He said that he thinks hybrid machines will probably be the way to go in possibly be the way to go in MotoGP in the future, because the championship needs to adapt with the times and become much more fuel efficient, obviously. Until the electric side of things is up to scratch and able to provide the necessary range, then hybrid, he feels, is definitely worth investigating, at least as a form of bridging technology, if you like. That has elicited a fairly scathing response, it has to be said, from KTM CEO Stefan Pera, who effectively called it nonsense. By 2024, I think it is, 40% content of fuel will be biofuel in MotoGP, and by 2027 it'll be 100%. And as far as I understand it, that'll be synthetic biofuel that isn't using a crop that should be going into the bellies of the hungry, although I may conceivably have got the wrong end of the stick there. And to produce this fuel, it's energy intensive, solar energy will be used. Pera references Saudi oil company Aramco that is currently building the solar capacity to refine this sort of fuel. So in the words of one of his own engineers, if you can achieve 100% sustainability using biofuels after 2026, why do you have to make things more complicated than necessary? I am ignorant of this subject, I must admit, and I'll be doing a lot more reading over the coming weeks. But if it works for MotoGP and motorsports in general, will it then be scalable for public use? And if so, does that mean a potentially extended life for the internal combustion engine? And if it does, if this is a viable thing, are we being legislated off our existing bikes earlier than might actually be necessary? Bearing in mind that the EU and the UK have already said that no new cars or bikes with internal combustion engines can be sold new after 2035. I know there's plenty of smarter people, much smarter than me, in our audience, so please feel free to educate me and everyone else in the comments below. Okay then, a final news snippet, a little one for the moment, that also concerns electric power, as just about everything seems to do these days. This time we're talking Can-Am and their announcement of 2 new electric motorcycles that will be for sale in 2024. Can-Am, for those who aren't of a certain age, is known as the manufacturer of 3-wheel vehicles and is a part of BRP, or Bombardier Recreational Products, or simply Bombardier. Or Bombardier if you're a Brit who doesn't like French pronunciation. As you can see from these images though, a few decades ago, Can-Am had a very successful run as a dirt bike manufacturer, and now it's aiming to once again reclaim some of that sales success with some new 2-wheelers. The bikes will be electric, the Origin will be dual purpose, and the Pulse will be road only, though there are certain to be other models following hot on this duo's heels. The bikes will have a new electric motor from Rotax, and apart from that, there are no details as yet. Understandable, I suppose, this far out from their arrival, and given the rapidity with which the technology is evolving in this segment of the market. Styling looks fresh and a lot less clunky than some electric newcomers, though some of the lines and the choice of colours do suggest that at least one person in the Can-Am design team is something of a Husqvarna fan, don't you think? And that's it for this quick news piece. I'll be back sooner than usual, as I've decided to try and be a bit more productive and timely with these updates, rather than relying, often a bit too slowly for much relevance on YouTube, on what gets aired on our South African programme. So I'll be back soonish. See you then.